Thank you, everyone, for listening to Soul Talk with host Jeremy McDonald, the author of Peace Be Still. You can check out more about our shows or about Jeremy at soultalkradio.org and jeremymcdonald.net. And now for our show.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for listening to Soul Talk. I'm pretty excited about tonight's show. We have a guest that I've been hearing about for quite some time, Sara Chetkin. She is the author of the book The Healing Curve. A little bit about her. We're just waiting for her to come on the line. If you'd like to call in and speak with her, her number is going to be 646-929-1371 is the call-in number. Her bio, just to kind of read through real quick, is born in Key West, Florida in 1979. Sara Chetkin was 15 when she was diagnosed with severe scoliosis and spent much of the next 15 years traveling around the world seeking healing and spiritual insight. I'm not going to go too far into her bio. It seems like she just called in, and I think sometimes it's just better to hear from the source, the author that wrote the book, so we're going to bring her on the line, and we should have an amazing show. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Sara. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I can't complain. Florida is hot, and
that's true.
It's going pretty good. Well, I'm pretty excited. I was just kind of giving a little bit of your bio at the intro of the show. I see that you were actually born in Florida.
Yes,
so that's pretty
in Key
cool.
West. Mhm.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And not many people can say they were born in Key West. You know.
No, it's true. I'm a real conch.
But down here in Tampa, people say I'm a native Floridian. I was like, that doesn't happen. Usually people are from New York or Chicago.
Right.
So
a lot of my family was born in Key West. So.
Were they really? Wow. The big joke out here is the Conch Republic really real? And
yeah. It is. It's real. Don't question it.
Well, apparently you can get your own passport. So. Well, I'm pretty excited about talking about your book here, especially the nature of the journey that you've gone on, and you know, a lot of times the people I interview for healing, most of them have gone through tons of emotional healing, which not saying that that's not what you've gone through, but not a lot of them have come forward. Not very many have come forward and said, "Hey, I had something physical going on with my body, and I've found, you know, healing within that." So I'm pretty excited about talking about your journey, and especially, you know, when you were young, you were diagnosed with scoliosis. It looks like you were 15.
Yes.
I guess my first question for you is the emotions that came along with that, obviously, and where you were at the age of 15 with this diagnosis.
Yeah, a lot of emotions came up when I received that diagnosis. I mean, anger, frustration, sadness, and I mentioned it in the healing curve too. Strangely enough, I felt a lot of shame too, because I just the X-ray, you know, my spine looked so strange, and the chiropractor, one of the chiropractors in the office, not my chiropractor, but another one came in, and she kind of gave this little gasp when she saw my spine. And, you know, I had this feeling, especially in that moment as a teenager. I mean, when are you more vulnerable about your physical appearance, right? So just to have all of that happening and having everybody staring at my X-ray and seeing this twisted up spine, and it was just awful. And my reaction at that time was just to go into severe denial, not even think about it. I didn't want to change anything in my life. I just didn't want to address it at all. And since my family is very alternative in terms of medical care anyway, we weren't planning on doing any kind of surgery at all. We never even considered the option, really. And my chiropractor, and I think many chiropractors are, you know, tend to steer you away from that direction. Anyway, so because of that, I didn't have to deal with it right away. You know, there was no like deadline for me. You know, I wasn't like, well, this is when I'm having surgery. I'm going to have to face this and really get through it. No, I mean, for years, through my teens, I just went on this journey in the other direction, trying to find out who I was and figure out all of that without addressing the scoliosis. But then, of course, the scoliosis started to define my life, because when you're trying to deny something that's so prevalent and so obvious, you just unwittingly create a whole life around it, because you're in this state of resistance. So everything becomes about the thing you're resisting. The expression, what you resist will persist. I mean, I was a walking definition of that.
Yeah,
and
you talk, I think that's where you get it when you're talking about humility. Because you talk about that throughout the book as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, please go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, just what happened was that, in being in this state of denial and really just trying to live my life without that piece of it, without that piece in it, without acknowledging that part of myself, I noticed eventually that I was just diving into these personas, these ideas, these, social scenes, and really committing myself to them completely, and I don't think that this is so different from other people's experiences. I had another reason for doing it. And what I mean is that I would take on a certain persona, whatever it might be, a hippie or a grunge girl or whatever it is, and I would just change everything about myself to fit that, especially as a teenager. I mean, okay, now I'm a hippie and I like the Grateful Dead, and I'm just going to do everything, whatever that means to me, I'm going to be that totally and completely. And then a few years later, I would completely flip-flop and be something on the total opposite end of the spectrum, and then everything about myself would be defined by that. And I just kept doing that over and over again, really searching for some understanding of myself, and it just wasn't working. I was changing all the time, and we all go through that. But eventually I looked back when I was in my 20s, and I thought, this is ridiculous. What is the piece I'm missing? Where's the constant? Who's the person making all these decisions? Who is the one behind all of these masks? And when I started asking those questions, then of course the first thing that came up was, well, you have to deal with your back. I mean, you have to deal with this condition you have. It's going to be there no matter what, and you have to approach it head on, because that's a big part of who you are. I mean, it's your spine, it's your back, it's your, symbolically, it's your whole support system. So I started to take that head on, and I think let me see, in my early 20s when we went to my first real healer, in Brazil. And I just started that journey, and like I say, like you may have said in the introduction, and like I say in the book over and over again, the journey was always two things. On the one side, the physical quest for healing. On the other side, this quest for myself, to understand and uncover that my true nature. And when I started to come to that, it started to be not just my true nature, but everybody's true nature. The thing that brings us all together, the oneness, the energy that binds us all as life, as humanity, just as beings. And that's when I started to get really engaged in that spiritual search.
So do you think out of all your class, that's the biggest, that's the most profound thing is that your biggest thing that you started to realize is our oneness and our divine purpose and that our divineness of who we are, and
absolutely.
The spiritual quest.
I mean, that to me there isn't any other meaning to life. It's I just think the most important thing is uncovering that within yourself, getting a daily understanding and a working knowledge of what it means to be in touch with that divine energy, to at least understand that you have access to it at any time. And it's simple. I mean, it's there, it's accessible, it's who you are. So you can tap into that whenever you want. It's really just a choice. And for me, the choice is becoming more and more the idea between your personality, your persona, which we work on and we create every day, or this other thing. So I'm teaching myself to put less importance on that persona. all of the things that we put so much importance on in society, your convictions, your beliefs, your ethics, your politics, your spirituality, all of these things create our personality, but it has nothing to do with the divine intelligence that's bringing life to us, that's inspiring us all the time. And so I'm learning to put less importance on that. I just think the more you kind of understand what your personality is and how it's not immutable, it's not infallible, you kind of turn away from it a little bit and you start to look for something else. And the only other thing to see is that divinity that you were speaking of, that divine energy within each of us. For me, that's really the best and highest purpose that we can have.
I bring that up because I have a friend or somebody I work with healing, and she has MS. It was a dancer in her youth, and of course now she's wheelchair bound. So the hardest thing she had is that she wanted to get out of that wheelchair, and it was really difficult for her. And especially since being a dancer, now she's in a wheelchair. And, she went through a lot of anger and grief and everything else and finally realized that, that chair doesn't define who she is. She has a divinity in her that's so vast and so, infinite that she can still enjoy a tremendous amount of peace and love and harmony and everything else in abundance. And so, just watching her go through her journey has been quite extraordinary. And, it is quite an incredible journey. So I find it interesting. One of the things that you talk about, and we do have a guest or somebody calling in, and I'll get to them. Whoever's on hold, I'll get to you in just a second. You talk a lot about, you're already starting to talk about it here, and as we discuss it, but you're talking about being honest with yourself. And you also go into a state where you're looking at an X-ray, and you start loving the X-ray of your spine, and so I just thought that was really interesting because there's a lot of times people are looking at something that they don't like about themselves, and we've already been talking about this a little bit. Like they stand in front of the mirror and they see their body and they don't appreciate it, and you went the opposite direction in this instance that most people do, and you started loving, having a loving feeling instead of, looking at it and going, ugh, in that moment. What did that do for you in that moment when you felt that?
Well, it shifted everything because I realized, I want to heal this. Now, if someone comes to me for healing, say for acupuncture or for Ro-Hun, I don't go in it hating them. I don't go into the session thinking, well, I have to heal this person and they're wrong right now, and now I'm going to change them and I'm going to make them better. No, I mean, you go into any healing session with a loving energy, with an accepting energy. You want to create a space that's safe enough, that the person feels safe enough to go through a transformation. So it's funny that when we are trying to heal something in ourselves, and I always think of the example, she's battling cancer, that we immediately get into this war mode, and the thing that we're trying to heal is the enemy, but that's so, if you think about it from a healer's perspective, that's so counterintuitive. Of course you need to create a loving space in which that condition, whatever it may be, can find expression and come into balance again. So it really changed my whole perspective on what I'm trying to do here. And not only that, but it helped heal a big part of my, my relationship to myself. And I mean, that's healing for your whole life. Like you said, with your friend, I still have a curvature. I'm still working towards it. It's improving, and I've had a lot of improvements, but it's still there. But I've learned I can't put my life and my happiness on hold because I'm waiting for this miraculous healing. I have to continue to live and to love and to find joy and just lead a full life, no matter what's happening. So I think that piece was really instrumental in pushing me in that direction, and realizing, wait, my life is going by, and I'm just focused on this anger and hatred of my back. I need to shift that. I think it's so important for any kind of healing.
I'm on the same page with you, because I was thinking about, I got that years ago, because I was probably like 2002, 2003, and I went to my doctor, and I had just a virus, and they gave me antibiotics, and I thought that later on, after I realized what happened, I realized that the nature of the word anti is a war against bacteria within your body.
Yeah.
We're trying to pound out something that naturally needs to be in your body. There's just an over surplus of bacteria, so that means the body is out of balance. So love brings things back into balance. I'm like, it just made me think on a different level from the normal. And when you start, it's exactly what you're talking about. When you start shifting your thoughts, then the dis-ease changes in your body, and you don't get as many flus or whatever you want to refer to them, whatever labels you want to put on it, and everything just starts to come back into balance. And it doesn't mean that we don't, fall back into our things, but we use those as opportunities. So it's pretty extraordinary. I'm going to bring this caller on really quick. They're from a 508 area code. Hello, from a 508 area code. How are you? Hello? Okay, well, I guess they're not on the line anymore.
Goodbye, 508.
508, I think that's Massachusetts. I think. Maybe not.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Okay, so, one of the things that I really enjoyed in here is just looking at your media questions here, I thought it was interesting because you say your description of the feminine energy sounds a lot like the law of attraction. Are the two related? And I'm really interested to hear your response on that. So.
Yes. No. The answer is no. They both are about creating a life of abundance and a peaceful life and a happy life. But the difference is that in the law of attraction, they talk a lot about, creating with your thoughts, manifesting actively. And while that's interesting and it does get results, for me, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the divinity, I know the things I want in my life. I want healing. Of course, we all want more abundance and prosperity and more security and all of the things that we all want from life. But I really have the conviction or the belief now that whatever it is I want, it can't possibly be as good as what my higher self or my higher soul or the God within me could create for me. So the whole chapter about the feminine energy is about taking a chance and maybe putting aside your goals, not manifesting, but instead, allowing that energy to create for you, to create through you. And of course, all of that involves, again, putting aside the personality, putting aside your ideas and your beliefs and your needs, and just trusting that what you need will be provided. And for me, and that your experiences will create, deeper understanding for you, that everything that's occurring for you is designed to create for you a beautiful life, to trust and to know that fully, that that's true. And that's not, it's simple, but it's not easy to do. Trusting is so difficult, I think, for most of us, especially trusting in that way. A friend of my mother's used to say, can you give your life over to God? The God within, the God energy within you. Can you do that? Can you give up complete control and trust that everything you need will be provided? And I've been experimenting with that over the years since I wrote that chapter, and just as I was writing it, as I was writing this book, I was going through all of it, so I started it almost as a journaling, what of the things I was experiencing, the meditations I was doing, the things I was practicing spiritually. And so that chapter is all about the idea, do nothing. There's a quote from Kafka, and he says, I don't have it memorized, but he talks about that don't do anything, just sit still, do absolutely nothing, and the world will roll at your feet. It has no choice. Everything is here for you. This world, everything in it, this is my husband likes to say, this is heaven on earth. I mean, we are in heaven. I mean, this is heaven right now. We're in it right now, and we just don't trust it. We don't see it. And when we start to trust, we start to see things happening, just crazy synchronicities. And a simple example for me, like I said, I've been experimenting with this energy, is that we always, my husband and I, anytime that we need a certain amount of money for something, it's there. We don't have a huge stockpile of money in our bank account. We're not like living high luxury or anything. But at moments, of course, we all need money, and we just trust. When we need the money, it'll be there. I don't know how. I don't know what will happen, but I just know it'll be there when we need it. And it is, and that's, at first it was a very scary way to live, and just trusting, well, when we need it, it'll be there. But it's been working, and the more you work with that energy, you see that the more you trust, the more it's there, the more you can create just from that space of trust and stillness and knowing that what you need will be provided, instead of going out and saying, I'm going to think positively, and I'm just going to, I want that, I want to win the lottery, or I want to do this or that. In fact, I'm sorry, but I just thought of a very funny story of a friend who, she wanted I think a teacher of mine talked about this in a class. She wanted a red car, like some kind of red convertible. So she was always picturing, to manifest the red car in her driveway. So all the time, every day, she would picture this red convertible in her driveway constantly. And a few years later, this was going on for a little while, she moved to a new house. And one day she thought, well, I'm going to drive by my old house and see what's going on there. Well, sitting in the driveway was a red convertible. So when you're working like that and using your personality to creating with, your thoughts, and you don't know where it's going to go, it's, you just don't know what you're creating. Yes, she created it, but it wasn't what she wanted, so.
Well, and then they get into all that stuff about you have to be specific, and I'm just like, well, what if I just said I'm going to go into flow, and I know everything is going to be perfect, divinely perfect, and everything is an opportunity. I used to call it Disney World metaphysics, because basically I was acting like a child walking into Disney and seeing that castle for the first time, and Mickey Mouse for the first time, and everything is just exciting and happy.
Right.
And, and it's not even positive thinking. You're just, even the moments where I get, even frustrated, I stop and I laugh at it, because then it becomes a divine comedy. And, and I just giggle, and I'm like, well, that was a moment.
Right. So, and it's important to do that, to not be hard on yourself when you stumble, when you get angry or when you get frustrated. It's okay. We all do. So to have that forgiveness for yourself is such an important piece.
Yeah, it's just a breath of fresh air to hear you say that, because when I read that question, it was just, I thought to myself, because I've all of us, a good majority of people have gone on this journey of just understanding and faith and knowing you're going to be taken care of and knowing that it's going to be there. And you're right, you're absolutely right. It's not always the easiest journey. So
no.
And there's times where I'm like, oh, I don't know how this is going to work out, and I'll be like, well, whatever's meant to be will be, and I know it, with ease and grace, and that's all I say. And so it generally, sometimes the last dang minute.
I know, believe me. I'm.
So, but it all works out. So it's interesting, because when I think about the spine, I think of that, especially when I'm thinking about the Kundalini and that kind of energy and stuff like that. And then since you're in acupuncture, I know you're very familiar with the energy body and that kind of stuff. So, when you are in an we were talking about a loving state as opposed to being an angry or a upset or a depressed state, that to me would significantly change how the chi flows in your body. Love would obviously create, to me, more flow in the body, and the anger, depression, denial, avoidance, all that kind of stuff would cause stagnant chi in the body, from my understanding in energy medicine. So, I don't know if most people don't understand that out there. They study different healing practices. I've even known Reiki practitioners that didn't understand that anger blocks the flow of chi in your body.
Well, it's very easy to understand. I mean, think about when you're angry, you tense up. I mean, everything becomes tense, and that's the energy flow. If you do that long enough, that tension stays, and you don't even notice it. You begin to live with it, and over time, it builds up. There's stagnation, like you said, and that creates pain in your body, so people just live with it. Sometimes they're not even aware that they have the pain until someone touches there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and then life experience seems to even bring up the blocked chi from like 20 years ago, and you're like,
yeah.
I thought I've gotten over that. It comes up and you have to face it. So it's just interesting way to look at things. So out of all the healers you've gone to, you've been all the way down to Brazil you've been to a psychic surgeon, and you've gone on several different things, basically kind of traveled around the world to see healers. Did you find one and you just stuck with them, or was there, did you continue to go?
Everybody I've been to has just been so amazing in their own way, and I mean, from my chiropractor Debbie in Key West to the Maori healer Papa in New Zealand, he was truly incredible, and I think if he were still alive today, I would make an effort to try to get there, I don't know, once a year or something, but I don't know that anybody down there is doing that work the way he did. He was just incredible. And then here, thankfully, right here in the States, is my friend Cheryl, who I write about in the book. And she's she's profound. Her work is amazing and so transformative on so many levels. And, I try to see her whenever I can. I mean, I'm constantly calling her, can you come into town? Can you come into town? When are you coming back? So I receive treatments from her as often as possible. And it's just so helpful. And she's really created so much change in my body, and just working with her. How in a massage sometimes you can have emotions come up. Well, with her it's like the emotions that come up, but for a week afterwards, sometimes you can feel. It's hard to explain unless you go through it, but you can almost feel on a cellular level your body addressing those things, those emotional things. And I'm not doing anything, but I know that there are things being worked out, things that maybe came up on the table. I can still feel the emotional detox, for example, just happening on this subtle level, and it's really incredible. So I'm so glad that she's here. She's just in Ohio. She's only a few hours away from me, so I'm really lucky with that.
That's interesting.
I'm trying to persuade her to move where we are.
I have a friend that lives in Lexington, Kentucky, that she does remote work on me, and it's the same thing. You can feel it, just shift in your body, and there's a lot of amazing people out there that, just allow. And that kind of goes a step further, since you're a healer yourself. When you mentioned you don't go into a session without love, and so to me, the love would be an allowance to allow your divine nature to work through you, and to with that divine nature of the other person. And so, namaste, it's the divine in me honors you. And so, and then in essence, the healing happens when they become into oneness with each other and experience that in the moment, and then the physical starts to heal itself. And so, as opposed to being constricted and tight and everything like that. So it's pretty interesting, when you think about that you've gotten this connection with so many people. So do you? This is an interesting question, because I think that I'm going to ask this in twofolds. Do you think you will one day be healed? But I'm going to ask it emotionally and then also physically.
Emotionally, I think that I've really come so far. I don't know if you ever can say I'm fully emotionally healed. There's no more dark within me. I think we're all equal parts, dark and light, like yin and yang, you know. So I think that it's more emotionally, it's more about having a maturity about these fears that you may have, or frustrations or anger. I think when you do enough therapy, like Ro-Hun therapy or the hypnotherapy is very similar. You know, when you're doing all these therapies where you're going back and you're healing the past, you start to recognize after a while that you could do that forever. I mean, you could do that for a lifetime, and you still would have something to process. There would still be some emotion there. So eventually, you start to realize that it's not so much about going back and healing it. It's about recognizing this is just an emotion. It doesn't define me. You know, I've seen in my therapies, and people can see it in meditations, whatever, that you have another piece. There's this divine, infinite part of you that isn't touched by this anger, that isn't touched by these sad experiences. And you start to want to touch in with that more. And so the experiences may still be there. You may still occasionally feel, you know, something about them or anger at somebody around you, but it's passing. It's quick, you know. You learn that it's just a temporary experience, and it passes. It doesn't have anything to do with the true you. So I think that's the real emotional healing, that you can just move through your life in a state of grace, you know, with peace as the foundation rather than stress or fear or anger, and you learn to deal with those emotions in that mature way. So am I there yet? No, I'm not completely. Am I learning, and am I growing towards that? Yes, I certainly hope so. I mean, that's my daily work all of the time is working with that. And physically, you know, at this point, I think if I could go the rest of my life in the state I am in right now, that would be perfect, because yes, I still have a little curvature, and yes, it's, you know, occasionally causes me discomfort, but honestly, it doesn't affect my life. It doesn't impact my life at all, not anywhere near as much as it did when I was younger. So I'm happy with that, and I think there's still room for improvement, and I think that the work I'm doing, and then the meditating and the yoga and the treatments from Cheryl and from chiropractors, I think that helps immensely. So I think I will continue to improve. Will it ever be absolutely perfect? I don't know. I don't know what the key is for that. I can be honest about that. You know, it's so different for every person, but I think the main thing, again, is the trusting that this divine, infinite intelligence within me can do the healing. I don't have to do it, you know, and that's the lesson I'm learning, that I don't have to do it. It's not about creating consciously my healing. You know, it's about trusting that divine energy within me will create that healing, and allowing that, you know, stepping aside and allowing that to take place. And since I've been working with that energy, I can tell you that the feelings in my back are so different. It's like night and day, you know. That trust is so important. I don't think it can be overstated how important it is to trust that energy within you, and to give up a little control to allow that to come forward. It's profound, and it just changes your life so much.
It's you're just making me smile, because it sounds to me like you're learning, like a lot of us, to live in the now of the moment, and you can't really define what the future is. You know, you've gotten a lot better. You're happy with where you're at in the moment. You're not letting it hold you back, and you're grateful. You know, and you're just taking it one moment at a time and enjoying each moment. Mm-hmm. And so it's
that's what you have to do.
And so, I mean, I say that because I at 32 had a back so tense with stress, and shoulders that were so tense with stress that I had trouble getting out of bed, and so you know, because the back pain was so tremendous, and interesting enough, nothing from back injuries, just because I was so stressed, and I was a meditator.
Right, I know.
You know,
it's amazing, isn't it?
So 8 years later, I mean, I still have some discomfort on my back, but it's not like a brick anymore. and through energy work and my own practice and working with other people, I mean, I can actually walk around without having extreme amounts of pain, and so just by living in the now of the moment and not stressing about it and having faith. And I think out of everything in your message, that's the biggest message I'm hearing, is that, you know, appreciating everything you're going through and loving it. So pretty profound. So I just want to, while we're here, I just want to announce to everybody, Sara's website is thehealingcurvebook.com. Now make sure you put in, I put in thehealingcurve.com, and that came up on another website. So it's www.thehealingcurvebook.com, and you can find her book at Amazon, and Amazon.com. I'm assuming it's probably also on Barnes & Noble as well. Yes. But if you go to her website, it's got right there she's got a link to go to Amazon to purchase it. And while you're there, there's a quote here that says, "Nothing can compete with the astounding perfection of the world around you, designed for you to make your return journey a journey of self-discovery to your own divine nature," which is exactly the message that you're talking about here on the show. So
yes, that's right.
That's so perfect. And so even on the other side, it says every experience, even the experience of illness, is an opportunity to deepen our understanding of ourselves and of our world. And I'd like to talk about that actually just for a second, because we've talked actually quite a bit about this, but there, you know, and you find in a lot of spiritual sects, or not even just in spirituality, everybody wants to avoid what makes them uncomfortable. You know, so it doesn't necessarily have to be with physical pain or illness. You know, if they don't like somebody, they want to avoid it. You know, if they don't like something politically, they avoid it. And I'm not saying that, you know, we need to go into abuse or anything like that, but you say something, you know, in that quote, you're saying a whole lot. Every experience, even the experience of illness, is an opportunity to deepen our understanding of ourselves and our world. So even things that make us uncomfortable are an opportunity to help us grow and understand ourselves better. And,
yes, absolutely. And I think something really easy that people can do to start this process is to look at those things. You know, when they're frustrated, when somebody is bothering them, ask to be shown, what is it about me that's creating this emotion? Because nobody can create an emotion within you, and that's a lesson that can be difficult to understand and to learn. You know, no one can make you feel anything. You're feeling that way because you have that button, you have that trigger, and we want to discover these triggers and heal them. You know, we want to go through life with as few triggers as possible, and, you know, some of us have more than others, but when they come up, don't run away from them. You know, don't avoid them. Don't go into we don't want to go into our escape mechanisms, whatever they may be, work, exercise, drinking, whatever. You know, we want to face those things so that we can heal them, because the more we resist them, it's like putting up a wall, and behind that wall, say it's the Hoover Dam, you know, and the water's just building up and building up and building up, and eventually, you know, years down the line, we're having a crazy, angry breakdown or explosion, but we don't know why. Well, it's because over time we haven't acknowledged these little triggers, these little annoyances that we go through in our daily life. And some of them are bigger annoyances, like scoliosis, or like your friend's MS, or like your back pain. You know, sometimes they come to that point and we're forced to acknowledge it, and then we have the choice. Am I going to look at this and learn something about myself and how I'm contributing to this condition, or am I going to go the other way, you know, and continue in denial? And I think it's a dangerous path to go the other way, because you don't know how else that energy will find expression in your life. And it will, you know, it longs to be expressed. It's a part of your soul. It's a part of your whole being. You know, it's there because it needs to be expressed and acknowledged. And the more you avoid it, the more it's going to wreak havoc in your life. And it doesn't have to just be physical stuff. It can start with, you know, it can also come in financial troubles or relationship problems, or I don't know, a house burning down. It could be anything. I mean, this energy is there because it needs to be acknowledged and healed. So we always want to look at these little triggers, you know, before they get to that point. Acknowledge them, heal them, let them go. Honestly, too, how I mean, if someone's annoying to you, something simple like that is, who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter if they're a little annoying. I mean, it's not ruining your life. You can find the grace within yourself to be loving and to understand that trigger is about you, not about them. You could come and see them the next day, and if you've healed that, they could seem like the most wonderful people in the world. And wouldn't that be better? I think it would be.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and it's in how often, I mean, the slightest little thing can set us off, and then so until we start really becoming, I've referred to it as self-aware, or some people refer to it as emotional intelligence, where we start to realize our own emotions and understanding our own reactions to the stimulus around us, and that kind of stuff. And so it's pretty, that's just profound. And when you flip your world from what I refer to as a victim mindset to an opportunity mindset, then it stops becoming working against us and working for us. So
yes,
pretty cool stuff. I'm really enjoying our talk, and I know that the listeners are as well. So it's tell me, because you talk about Ro-Hun, and so tell me a little bit about this, the listeners, about the healing modality and what that entails.
Sure. It's a form of talk therapy, but there's energy work involved in it too, and you're in a light meditative state, and you are guided to go back to these experiences where you have interpreted the experience as negative. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be something truly traumatic. It could be something very simple, an argument you had when you were a kid. And in that moment, you make a decision, some decision about yourself, say, common ones are I'm unworthy, or no one will ever love me, things like that. So you make a decision about yourself in that moment. And from there on, you live according to that decision. It becomes a whole belief system from which you create your entire life. And over years, you begin to see, because these belief systems are affecting your perspective and your perception of other events, you start to see, I have this belief, I'm unworthy. Oh, see, this person, they prove it. You see, look how they're treating me. I'm unworthy. It's all happening unconsciously, though. So again and again, you perceive experiences in a way that tells you I'm unworthy, to the point where eventually it's no longer a belief. Now it's a truth. So for you, it's a law. I'm unworthy. And you're going through your life living accordingly, making decisions accordingly, doing everything accordingly. And you're wondering, why can't I get ahead? Why can't I meet the right partner? Why can't I get the right job? Well, because inside, there's that little 6-year-old in there saying to you all the time, chanting, I'm unworthy, I'm unworthy. So in Ro-Hun and in other similar therapies, there are other therapies out there that do have a similar technique. Hypnotherapy is one that I know off the bat. You go back and you find that original experience, and you see how it's just your interpretation. You really heal, like you said, that victim mentality. You say, okay, I can see the other person's side. I can see what they were going through. I understand. I can forgive them. Now, of course, the level of trauma, depending on the circumstance, it could be a more profound healing. But all acts, everything must be forgiven in the end. Even the most horrible things have to be forgiven for healing to happen. And we just have to remember that we're all God. We're all one. We're all this God energy experiencing and expressing in the physical. And we all deserve forgiveness. So when you do that, when you can go back and you can forgive and you can see your part in it, you can see how your thoughts or your interpretation contributed to the trauma from an event, then it changes everything about your life in the present moment, because suddenly your belief systems are different, your understanding of the event is different, and you begin to make different choices. And it can happen in a few months. Your life can be totally different if you can just heal one of these one of these sticky beliefs, is one of these sticky, faulty thoughts, they call it, that's been affecting you all these years. Your whole life can be transformed. It's incredible. It's amazing how much your belief systems affect your daily life, which is why I say you have to let your convictions and your belief systems be just be there on the side, heal them, work with them, but don't make them the center of your life. There's something else. There's that God energy there, which is so much more powerful and can really create for you something beautiful. But you've got to get out of the way a little bit.
Yeah. It's that it creates that looping effect, or some people call it the hamster wheel. You're continually doing over the same thing over and over again.
And even when you try consciously to, I told a story in a lecture recently about how, even when you try to consciously make a change in your life, you might still be dealing, if you're not open and accepting to these faulty thoughts, if you don't acknowledge them and let them go, you can try to make changes, but you'll just end up in the same situation no matter what. And the example I gave was that when I was in my 20s, I used to date all these guys who were very, it's kind of a silly example, who were very artsy, really intelligent, really talented, but really going nowhere, and I was trying to get my life in gear, do my acupuncture, I really wanted to go ahead, but I found myself always falling for these men who were not together at all, and I would be trying to put them together. And so one day I said, I'm done with this. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm just gonna go for the complete opposite of what I've been going for. And I met somebody, and he had a very good job. He was an engineer. He had his own house. He was doing great, whatever. And so and the thing is, I wasn't even really that interested in him, but I just said, no, I'm going to do it because I want to be with someone who's together. So I went forward with the relationship. Well, 6 months later, he was laid off. He didn't know what he was going to do with his life. He started to get depressed. He was on the couch all day. I just immediately ended up in the same situation all over again, totally unconsciously. I thought I was dating somebody who was totally different from the other men I had dated, but he ended up being exactly the same. So I had to heal that part of myself, whatever the thought was. I don't remember now. Whatever it was that made me continue to create that in my life, I finally healed it, and 3 weeks later I met my husband. So it worked out, but you see how you can try to change it, but without going within, without looking honestly at yourself and forgiving yourself and finding that loving relationship, it's not going to change.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you and I have had the same relationships. Because I was always trying to fix them and always trying to put it. I loved it. If you were a musician, a poet, an artist, I was going to fall for you.
Right. I know. Exactly.
Oh, they're just so wonderful, and they painted me a painting. They don't work.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's the perfect way. Write me a poem, paint me a painting.
And I'll just swoon. And so, but
exactly.
Yeah. And it's funny because what we're talking about here is when you get truly honest with yourself and you look at it. In the moment you might be frustrated, but then you can look back and you can giggle about it because you're like, wow, I really put myself through that, and it's perfect because I always look at it and say it's perfect because I couldn't have gotten where I'm at today unless I had my yesterday. So, through those experiences, and I think that's pretty incredible. So we're down to 11 minutes of our time together, and I was wondering if in this 11 minutes we could kind of cover anything that you would want to talk about. We talked about quite a bit, but if there's anything that you would like to tell the listeners, as wisdom.
Well, for me, the most important thing is not putting your life on hold, not putting conditions on your happiness until these, your goals are met. Learning to be happy in the moment right now. And that doesn't mean that we don't go through moments of tragedy, of sadness, of frustration, but just working through spiritual practice and meditation and through these little exercises I talk about in the healing curve, learning to see people as a mirror, learning to acknowledge your triggers and healing them, just developing this relationship with yourself and allowing yourself more stillness in your life. When you have a negative emotion, don't act right away. sit down, breathe, allow it to have its expression because it needs to be expressed and acknowledged, but also remember that it's just a passing temporary emotion. It doesn't define you. And when you finally feel calm again, then act. You know, these are the ways that we can begin to get in touch simply with that divine energy, with that all-knowing, with that infinite intelligence that's within all of us, that we all have access to. I think we always put so many conditions on our happiness. Everything has to be a certain way with a certain group of people and certain weather and certain everything. We don't recognize how every single day we have this list of things that have to happen for us to be comfortable and happy. And I bet if you really go on that list and really look at it and really scrutinize every item, you'll see that most of it means nothing and really can just be put away. You can choose to be happy right now. And you know, you don't want to waste your life focusing on those kinds of things. And I did it for a while, and I've learned that it's so important to just be in the moment and like we said, you know, see it as an adventure and be joyful and grateful about it. See every opportunity that's in the experiences you're having. You know yourself. Go within. Be still. Allow things around you to happen without trying to take control all of the time. It takes away so much stress, so much anxiety, and just gives you peace of mind. So often we're looking for peace of mind, and what we don't realize is that we're taking it away ourselves by needing control over every little thing, you know, needing to create a secure environment, needing to have life to be a certain way. We take away our own peace of mind. I was thinking when we were talking about divinity and allowing divinity to take over, how much more relaxed you can be. You know, if you don't have to think, well, I want this money and I need to get it. How am I going to go about getting it? You know, how am I going to go about getting this job? Or how am I going to go about creating this career? If you can let all of that go, it's such a relief. You know, it takes a ton of trust and a lot of courage. But when you get there, the relief is unbelievable. You just don't have to be worried all the time and always problem solving. You can just take that energy and use it to enjoy your life.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that because I went through that just today, and I went through this moment of where am I going to find the money to do this, and I need to figure this out. And my mind, I call it, I wasn't grounded. You know, my mind was flying all over the place, and I just thought to myself, all right, sit down, be quiet, be still. And it happened just a couple hours before you were going to be on the show, and I laid down, and I just started saying, be still, and, you know, because I needed to get myself back into that present moment. And, you know, and so it's funny that, you know, when we talk about this stuff, you know, I think oftentimes because people see that we've wrote books, you know, that we've got it all figured out. But the truth is that you mentioned something really strong, really profound at the beginning of the show. You learned this book when you were writing it. And as you were going through it, you were writing it, and I thought that became like a journal. And I thought that was really cool because in my book, I found actually that I should be careful about what I title the book because I know if I'm going to title it that, I'm going to be going through the lesson. And so my first book is called Peace Be Still, and so so all the lessons of learning how to be still came up over and over and over and over and over again.
Right.
So
exactly.
The next book that I'm working on is called Free Your Truth, Tame Your Dragon. And so
good luck.
and I laughed. Yeah, right. You know, and I just say it's interesting. Most of the authors that I interview, the same thing comes up. I learned my book as I was writing it because you need to be experienced to be able to teach it. And so, right,
of course. And, you know, I see it, too, as a journey we all take together. I mean, we're all one. Everybody I come into contact with is a reflection of me. I mean, I can only see in you what I know in myself, you know, and I think you have to honor everybody as a teacher. So, you know, when I'm lecturing or when I'm talking to people, I enjoy the process of uncovering these truths together, you know, not just saying what I think and that's the law. No, it's a wonderful journey that we're all on it together, whether we want to be or not, you know. you're on the train, and one day we all will arrive, whether we know it or not. There's a faster train and a slower part of the train maybe, but we'll all get there. So I think it's just a wonderful experience, life, and living this way, living this life, getting to talk about these things, and I love it. I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Absolutely, I'm the same way. I just wanted to mention on your website, if anybody's in the Lilydale area, it looks like you're going to be speaking or teaching a workshop up there.
Yes, in July 10th. Right, all about this kind of stuff, learning how to look at yourself honestly, little exercises. We're going to be doing some drawing and interpretations and a little bit of therapy, just a little bit of everything, meditation, and just, it's going to be a really fun class, and hopefully a profound class with all these messages incorporated into it. So my husband and I will be teaching together. He does a lot of great work too, so it'll be fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun. It looks like you're on Brenda Michaels' show too, so she's a really sweet lady. So very, very cool. So, guys, everybody that's listening, I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew about her website again. It's thehealingcurvebook.com. Definitely go check out her book, The Healing Curve. You can find it at Amazon.com. And I think that we'll definitely be having Sara back on the show sometime in the future. And maybe I was actually thinking with your healer, Cheryl, that would be kind of fun to talk about.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. She's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I think that would be really inspiring for people, and because really you're talking about your healing journey, and all of us are on a journey, and I think sometimes we feel like we're on the wrong journey, but we're really on the perfect journey.
There's no wrong journey.
So, well, thank you so much, Sara. I really have appreciated it, you being on the show, and really enjoyed my time with you, and I look forward to future connections.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed myself, too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. And for the next episode of Soul Talk, we will have Joel Alvina, our Vino, on the show. So you all have a wonderful day and many blessings. Bye-bye.